first interactions with Mr. B?
Well, Mr. B was always, I loved working with him. You know, you really had to be thinking and
Uh-huh.
you had to know what you were doing because when we were there, he would teach a group of six or four dancers on this side of the stage, and if you were over here, you had to do it opposite and then opposite and backwards, and so you had to learn fast.
Uh-huh.
And at that time, we really were a family because we were only what 40 some dancers in the company, so we were on at least three ballets every night, sometimes four, and. And we knew him as like I got to know Nishinska because I took 12 classes from her a week. I could look at the back of her head and know what she was going to want. And I got that way with Mr. B. So I was so familiar with the musicality and everything. And it was easy to work for him because
Uh-huh.
it was always musically correct and the same.
Right.
And I didn't do, I didn't do that much, original choreography with him. I inherited a lot of stuff. Like I did first Bure Fantasque with Tanny. That was the first time I ever did. That was in 1950, and that same tour.
Okay.
And I got called at 7 o'clock in the morning to come in and learn it and do it for the matinee.
It sounds
And
like from all the stories I hear that he was like an early riser. Was he like always up and going in the morning?
oh yeah, oh yeah, he was the end. You walk in the studio, he was there. You know,
Uh-huh.
it was. I got to know him much better after I left the company.
Oh, okay.
He was, when you were in the company at that time, he hated to be pinned down. He was so afraid somebody was going to ask him for something that he couldn't deliver.
Right, right,
You know,
right.
he didn't like this one-on-one, unless you were going to talk about science fiction or something he was interested in.
Right.
Then he was very verbal. But I used to go and, visit. Ginger and I would go back to New York occasionally, and we go up to see Betty Cage. We were very friendly with Betty. And, I mean, she did everything. She did Payday, she did all the publicity, she did everything.
Wow.
She was Wonder Woman and a sweetheart. And so I was very close to Betty, and I used to go up and see her. And we went up, Ginger and I went to see her, and said, "Wouldn't you like to see Mr. B?" And I said, "Yes, if he's not busy." He said, "Well, he's rehearsing. I think it was Midsummer Night's Dream."
Oh, wow.
And so Ginger and I walked in, and he always had a thing about Virginia for some reason. So we walked into the studio and just stood inside the door. I don't know which studio it was, but one of them upstairs. And he stopped the rehearsal, came across, got Ginger by the arm, walked her across the studio. Turned out that I sort of followed behind
Oh, that's cute.
and sat there. And he introduced us to the company. And some of them we knew, some of them we didn't. And went on with rehearsal. And we had made an appointment to go see Tanny
Mm-hmm.
because and they were still together at that time. So when he had a sort of a idle moment, I said, "Mr. B, we're going to have to leave because we made an appointment with Tanny at a certain time." He says, "We'll stay. When I'll come home and we'll visit." And so we stayed until he got home. And we were sitting in the kitchen, and he walks in, and he goes to the refrigerator and pulls out a bottle of vodka with dill stuck in it. He had it looked like a coffee can, and about so big around, and it had caviar in it. We sat there eating caviar out of teaspoons and taking swigs of vodka, which I was not used to. And finally, I knew it. It was around a Russian Easter, and I knew he was going to have some house guests, but Tandy had already told us. So it was about time for them to arrive, and Ginger and I excused herself, and I started to get up, and I wasn't sure I was going to be able to walk out of the place.